Mohan, good morning. You have to unmute. You have to unmute. No, we cannot hear you. You have to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay.
I can see you. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can also see you very
Good morning,
clearly.
Arjun sir. Arjun sir, good morning. Prasad.
Prasad, namaskar, pranam.
നമസ്കാരം.
Namaskar.
സുഖാണോ?
സുഖം തന്നെ.
ഡൽഹിയില് കേരളത്തിലുണ്ടോ?
ഡൽഹിയില് ഓഫീസിൽ നിന്ന്.
ആയിക്കോട്ടെ. ശരി. ഹാപ്പി ഓണം
ഇൻ അഡ്വാൻസ്.
നമുക്ക് നാളെ അടക്കിയ.
യു ആർ ക്ലോസിംഗ് ടുമോറോ. നാളെ എന്താ?
പിന്നെ 3-ാം ദിവസം ഹോളിഡേ.
You people are lucky. You holidays.
ഈവൻ അതർവൈസ് ഹോളിഡേ പോലെയല്ലേ എല്ലായിടും കോവിഡ് ആയതിന്.
For us, include us English, nights we have meetings,
Yeah.
Nights also meeting, and Delhi is only good for holiday. Unless you go out of Delhi, there is nothing but holiday. I'm happy that Diet from outside Kerala are also participating. I see Madam from Diet Ujjain. Pranam, namaskar, Madam.
Namaskar.
Morning, sir. From Diet Coimbatore, you're participating, sir.
Oh, I see. That's good.
Yeah.
It is
On behalf of SIEMAT, Tamil Nadu, you're participating. Diet Coimbatore and Ooty are participating.
Yes. Tamil Nadu is one of the few states in India which has associate professor or Professor Teresa, no? In your department.
In education department. Professor Mohan is in which discipline? Education or?
He is a versatile genius.
Let me make it simpler and say, I'm basically an education person.
Okay.
But I have not worked or studied education in Kerala, but mostly outside.
So you've been in Malaysia for a long time now?
No, I'm now based in Cochin. I'm talking from Cochin.
Okay.
I'm retired and back to Kerala. So, I worked in Malaysia for about 5 years.
That is one of the most famous open universities in the world after UK Open University.
Yeah, I know.
I had a chance to visit that university, not when Mohan was there.
Yeah, before that, yes. I think you visited the University of Science Malaysia, maybe.
We had done a book on University of Science Malaysia. That was the only
Yeah.
university with that excellence. There was a scheme.
That's right. Yeah.
So that was the one. So OECD was interested. So I'm part of that study group.
Right.
That was the time when Professor Razak was the Vice Chancellor.
Okay.
He was a very famous Vice Chancellor.
Right.
Later he became Vice Chancellor of one of the private universities located in KL. I met him in Washington when I went for a meeting. He was also there.
Yes, good morning, Anil sir. Yes.
Dr. Lal, great.
Yes, sir.
You are the man of ceremony today, and you are the man to be celebrating the day today.
Good morning,
That is
Dr.
Dr.
Lal.
N.V. Varghese, sir, Anil sir. This is Dr. N.V. Varghese from NEPA.
Yes.
Okay. Shall we
Professor
start?
Mohan also has joined. Professor Mohan also has joined.
Okay. Mohan, sir.
Yeah. Good morning, Dr. Lal.
Good morning. So, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir.
Sir, please mute everybody. Please mute your system, and we'll start the program right now.
Sir, good morning, sir. This is Mastanaya, Director, SIEMAT, AP, Andhra Pradesh.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Please mute your system, please. Since this is a program which is inaugurating the academic program of the SIEMAT Kerala, and also followed by that there is a public lecture. So it has two parts. So the first part will be in a mixed language. We will start the program in Malayalam. And the public lecture will be in English because this. കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ? Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me, Jamila teacher?
Keka. Go ahead.
Okay. So നമ്മള് ഈ തുടക്കം മലയാളത്തിലാണ്. അതിനുശേഷം പിന്നീട് ലെക്ചർ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ എല്ലാ ഭാഗത്തു നിന്നുമുള്ള സിമാറ്റും സ്കൂൾ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് അക്കാഡമി, നീപ്പ തുടങ്ങിയ ഡയറ്റുകൾ എല്ലാവരും പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അതുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ ആ ഭാഗം എത്തുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലേക്കാണ് കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നത്. പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ് ഒരുപാടുള്ളത് കൊണ്ട് ഗൂഗിൾ മീറ്റ് കൂടാതെ സിമാറ്റിന്റെ സ്കൂൾ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് അക്കാഡമിയുടെ യൂട്യൂബ് ചാനലിൽ കൂടി ലൈവ് സ്ട്രീം ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോ ഒരു സ്വാഗതം പറയുക എന്നുള്ളത് മാത്രമാണ് എന്റെ കർത്തവ്യം. ഞാൻ മറ്റു കാര്യങ്ങളിലേക്ക് ഒന്നും കടക്കാതെ ഇത് കൂടാതെ അഡ്വാൻസ്ഡ് ലെവൽ ഓൺലൈൻ പരിശീലന പരിപാടി പദ്ധതി. ഇത് കൂടാതെ ഗവേഷണ പദ്ധതികളുണ്ട്. കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ മുന്നോട്ട് പോകുന്നത്. APM ലക്ഷ്യം വഹിക്കുന്നതിനായി എത്തിച്ചേർന്ന അദ്ദേഹത്തെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി അദ്ദേഹത്തെയും കൂടുതൽ ഡയറക്ടർ ഓഫ് VN മസ്തനൈ അദ്ദേഹം ഒന്ന് മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്യാമോ? Can you please mute, sir? Mute your system. ഓക്കെ. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി അദ്ദേഹം ഈ പരിപാടി സീമാറ്റിന്റെ ഈ പരിപാടി അദ്ദേഹത്തെ അറിയിച്ചപ്പോൾ തന്നെ അദ്ദേഹം വളരെ സന്തോഷത്തോടു കൂടിയാണ് ഇത് ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് അദ്ദേഹം സമ്മതിച്ചത്. പബ്ലിക് ലെക്ചർ ഇന്നത്തെ ദിവസം നടക്കുന്നത് അദ്ദേഹം വളരെ സന്തോഷത്തോടു കൂടിയാണ് അതിനെ കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിച്ചത്. ഡിജിറ്റൽ ലേണിങ്ങിനെ കുറിച്ചാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ ടോപ്പിക് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ തന്നെ അദ്ദേഹം ഈ കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ നമുക്ക് ആവശ്യമുള്ള ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട വിഷയത്തെ കുറിച്ചാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് എന്നതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ കേരളത്തിന് ഒരുപാട് പ്രയോജനപ്പെടുന്ന കുറെ നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങൾ ഇന്നത്തെ ലക്ഷ്യം തുടർന്നുണ്ടാകുമെന്ന് അദ്ദേഹം പ്രതീക്ഷ പങ്കുവച്ചു. ആദ്യമേ തന്നെ പരിപാടിയുടെ ചെറിയ മൈന്യൂട്ടായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങളിൽ പോലും ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി ശ്രദ്ധ ചെലുത്തുന്നുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ ഇന്നത്തെ ഈ പരിപാടി ഉദ്ഘാടനം ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി അദ്ദേഹം സമ്മതിക്കുകയും അദ്ദേഹം അതിന് തയ്യാറാകുകയും ചെയ്തു. ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വകുപ്പ് മന്ത്രി ശ്രീ വി ശിവൻകുട്ടി അവർകളെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ ഈ പരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. പ്രൊഫസർ NV വർഗീസ് സാർ ആണ് ഈ പരിപാടിയിലെ പ്രത്യേക ക്ഷണിതാവായി പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നത്. അദ്ദേഹം സീമാറ്റിന് വളരെ വേണ്ടപ്പെട്ട ഒരു അതിഥിയാണെന്ന് പറയാം, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അദ്ദേഹം വീട്ടുകാരൻ കൂടിയാണ്. ഈ സീമാറ്റിന്റെ ഭരണ സമിതിയിൽ അംഗം കൂടിയാണ് ശ്രീ NV വർഗീസ് സാർ. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ എപ്പോൾ ഈ കേരളത്തിലേക്ക് ഒരു പരിപാടിക്ക് വേണ്ടി ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മന്ത്രിയോ സീമാറ്റോ ഒക്കെ ക്ഷണിക്കുമ്പോഴും അദ്ദേഹം അതിന് യാതൊരു മടിയും കൂടാതെ അദ്ദേഹം വരാറുണ്ട്. സീമാറ്റിന് വേണ്ടി അദ്ദേഹം ഒരുപാട് സഹായങ്ങൾ അദ്ദേഹം കോരി ചൊരിയുന്നു എന്നതാണ് ഞാൻ പറയുക. അത് മറ്റുള്ളവർക്കൊക്കെ അസൂയ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതാണ്. മറ്റുള്ള സീമാറ്റുകൾക്ക് ഒരുപക്ഷെ അസൂയ ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതാകാം. നമ്മുടെ സന്തോഷത്തോടു കൂടി ഞാൻ ഓർക്കുകയാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ നിങ്ങളുടെ എല്ലാവരുടെയും പേരിൽ സ്വാഗതം.
To process as well. That's where we need to really buttress our position by introduction of new pedagogical approaches, new systems and new practices that need to be brought in by the teachers to the classrooms. It calls for kind of a qualitative upgradation in terms of the training that's to be imparted to the LP school teacher, the UP school teacher, the high school teacher, and beyond that to the headmasters and the principals of the schools and various institutions. How do we do that? This is where SIEMAT and similarly situated institutions across the country have a greater deal of role to play. Beyond providing the necessary systems and the kind of rudiments that are required for educational administration, we need to go the extra mile and see to it that ultimately the teachers of today, the so-called digital teachers of today, would be able to measure up to the task that's been set forth for them. This is where we need to focus upon. Then we come to the question of providing the kind of textbooks, the digital textbooks, and the e-texts and the e-lessons that are to be provided. We find that in the last 1.5 years, according to the survey that was recently done by our own educational research training institutions, at least 35 to 40% of the students have already developed neck problems as well as back pain issues. This is becoming a recurring phase. So you can also imagine the kind of difficulty that's being faced on a daily basis by the elderly people as well. Online session after online session is going on across the world, but spondylosis and cervical spondylosis is on the increase as well. This is a really troublesome situation as far as this present day world is concerned. We intend to come back to the classroom sooner or later, but then with the kind of TPR, the test positivity rates that are going on in this state, and also the level of vaccination that's been carried out for the students, it would be quite some months before we can definitely get on to the classrooms. but then this process has to go on. The equipments that are given today may not necessarily be the kind of essential equipments that are required when the convention classroom session comes back. But then we need to create that into essentialities. How do we create that? It should become an added component to the educational practice that's being followed. The kind of precept and the kind of praxis that's being delivered in the classrooms. This is wherein the student and the teacher have to go to a grade. How do we conduct the co-curricular and extracurricular activities? These are things which have to really grab the attention of the educational planners, because these are all integral parts of the 12 years of schooling through which all of us went through. And these are the kind of integral parts that have really created a man out of a student, a woman out of a student. That's wherein you call a well-rounded personality to be formulated, to be created. This is something which has been lacking for the students in the years 2021 and 21-22. That's where we need to focus upon. Today being such an auspicious occasion, an auspicious day for the state of Kerala, I'm so happy that SIEMAT has launched this particular venture with such extraordinary personalities. I mean, such eminent personalities who have done legendary work in the field of education, like Dr. Verghese and others. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us for this wonderful session. And I'm so glad that all our persons over here will be able to impart, contribute valuable lessons, understanding the new paradigm shift that has occurred in the field of education, and also the new pedagogical approaches that need to be employed in this digital age, and how to really grapple with this digital challenge. It's one thing to provide laptops and tablets to the students, but it's a totally different game to make them understand the subtleties and the nuances that go into the creation of the digital classrooms. This is a major challenge. Without going into the houses of these children, without having a physical contact with these boys and girls, how do we do that? That's a question which needs to be answered. And I hope and pray that this wonderful exercise that has begun today would certainly throw greater light into the process of education. And the SIEMATs across the country, the diets across the country, the SCRTs that are situated in various parts of the country would all benefit immensely as a result of the intellectual, discussions that go on over here, and the kind of reflections, the thoughts and the reflections that are created upon hearing and listening to these wonderful lectures over here. I wish all the best for everyone who are present over here, and I hope and pray that we can start off this 21-22 into a wonderful chapter in the realm of education, and see to it that it's ultimately knowledge and knowledge alone that finally illuminates each by, just proposing that quote, the famous quote from Socrates. Socrates said, and I quote, there is only one virtue in this world, and that is information, and only one evil in this world, and that is ignorance. Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you very much, Muhammad Anish sir, for these inspiring words. This will take us to 22. Very, very fast, I think. Very enthusiastically, we will work together, sir, with your advice. Sir, may I invite the Minister for Inauguration? Okay.
I would totally invite the Honorable Minister for Education, Mr. V. Shivankuti. These are all Onam days, and tomorrow is the last working day before Onam. Being a very important leader for the capital city of Trivandrum, with too many issues related to the labor sector, he found little deal of time to interact with us. Welcome, sir.
പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെ, നമുക്ക് ആരംഭിക്കാം. ഇന്നത്തെ ചടങ്ങിൽ അധ്യക്ഷൻ പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സെക്രട്ടറി ശ്രീ APM മുഹമ്മദ് ഹനീഷ് IAS, പ്രത്യേക ക്ഷണിതാവ് നീപ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ പ്രൊഫസർ NV വർഗീസ്, പ്രൊഫസർ മോഹൻദാസ് V മേനോൻ, DG ശ്രീ K ജീവൻ ബാബു IAS, SIEMAT കേരള ഡയറക്ടർ ഡോക്ടർ MA ലാൽ, പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെ, പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സംരക്ഷണ യജ്ഞത്തിൻ്റെ വിജയത്തിൽ നിർണായകമായ പങ്കുവഹിച്ച ഏജൻസികളിൽ ഒന്നാണ് സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഓഫ് എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റ് ആൻഡ് ട്രെയിനിങ് കേരള എന്ന SIEMAT കേരള. പ്രഥമ അധ്യാപകർ, വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ ഓഫീസർമാർ, അനധ്യാപക ജീവനക്കാർ എന്നിവർക്ക് യജ്ഞ ലക്ഷ്യങ്ങൾ സാക്ഷാത്കരിക്കുവാൻ ആവശ്യമായ വിദഗ്ധ പരിശീലനം നൽകിയത് സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയാണ്. കോവിഡ് കാല വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റിൽ ഇതര സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങൾക്കും വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റ് സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾക്കും അനുകരിക്കുവാൻ കഴിയുന്ന വ്യത്യസ്ത മാതൃകകൾക്കാണ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് രൂപം നൽകിയത്. പുത്തൻ സാങ്കേതിക വിദ്യയുടെ സഹായത്തോടെ അർത്ഥവത്തും കാലോചിതവുമായ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റ് പരിശീലനം നടത്തിയ രാജ്യത്തെ ചുരുക്കം ചില വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റ് സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ ഒന്നെന്ന നിലയ്ക്ക് സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയുടെ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളെ പ്രത്യേകമായി അഭിനന്ദിക്കുവാൻ ഞാൻ ഈ അവസരം ഉപയോഗിക്കുകയാണ്. വരും തലമുറയുടെ ഭാഗതയും നിർണ്ണയിക്കുവാൻ പ്രാപ്തിയും വൈദഗ്ധ്യവും താല്പര്യവുമുള്ള നേതൃത്വ നിരയെ വികസിപ്പിച്ചെടുക്കുക എന്ന ലക്ഷ്യത്തോടെ വിവിധ വിഭാഗത്തിൽപ്പെട്ട വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ പ്രവർത്തകർക്ക് പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സംരക്ഷണ യജ്ഞത്തിൻ്റെ തുടർച്ചയ്ക്ക് ശക്തിയും ഊർജവും പകരാൻ പര്യാപ്തമായ ഒരുപിടി പുതിയ പരിശീലന പരിപാടികളാണ് സീമാറ്റ് കേരള 2021-22 നടപ്പിലാക്കുവാൻ ആവിഷ്കരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത്. സ്കൂൾ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ രംഗത്തെ അക്കാദമിക ഭരണ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾക്ക് നേതൃത്വം നൽകുന്ന വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ ഓഫീസർമാർക്കായുള്ള 5 ദിവസം ദൈർഘ്യമുള്ള കോവിഡ് കാല വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റ് പരിശീലനം, പ്രഥമ അധ്യാപകർക്കുള്ള ഫൗണ്ടേഷൻ ലെവൽ കപ്പാസിറ്റി എൻഹാൻസ്മെൻറ്റ് പ്രോഗ്രാം, ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് എൻഹാൻസ്മെൻറ്റ് പ്രോഗ്രാം, അഡ്വാൻസ് ലെവൽ കപ്പാസിറ്റി എൻഹാൻസ്മെൻറ്റ് പ്രോഗ്രാം, അഡ്വാൻസ്ഡ് ലെവൽ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് എൻഹാൻസ്മെൻറ്റ് പ്രോഗ്രാം എന്നിവ മുൻഗണനാ ക്രമത്തിൽ ആദ്യഘട്ടത്തിൽ തന്നെ നടത്തുമെന്നാണ് സീമാറ്റ് അറിയിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. കൂടാതെ പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വകുപ്പിൻ്റെ ഡാറ്റ അധിഷ്ഠിത ആസൂത്രണം സാധ്യമാക്കുന്നതിനും പ്രോത്സാഹിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനുമായി ആരംഭിക്കുന്ന ഡാറ്റാബേസ് ഇൻസൈറ്റ്, സ്കൂൾ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് മോഡൽ അവാർഡ് പ്രഖ്യാപനം, പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മേഖലയിൽ COVID-19 മഹാമാരി സൃഷ്ടിച്ച ആഘാത പഠനം എന്നീ ഗവേഷണ പദ്ധതി, പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ സംരക്ഷണ യജ്ഞത്തിൻ്റെ വേറിട്ട മാതൃകകൾ പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിനും ദേശീയ അന്തർദേശീയ തലങ്ങളിൽ രൂപം കൊള്ളുന്ന പുതിയ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ പരീക്ഷണങ്ങളും പ്രവണതകളും പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്നതിനുമായുള്ള എഡു ലീഡ് എന്ന അക്കാദമിക ജേർണലിൻ്റെ പ്രസിദ്ധീകരണം തുടങ്ങിയവയാണ് സീമാറ്റ് കേരള 2020-21 നടത്താൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന മറ്റ് ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾ. കേന്ദ്ര ഏജൻസിയായ നീപ്പയുടെ ധനസഹായത്തോടെ സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയുടെ ആഭിമുഖ്യത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ സംസ്ഥാനത്ത് സ്കൂൾ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് അക്കാദമി സ്ലാക്ക് എന്ന പേരിൽ പ്രവർത്തിച്ചു വരുന്ന കാര്യം ഏവർക്കും അറിയാമല്ലോ. സ്ലാക്കിൻ്റെ പ്രധാന പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളിലൊന്നാണ് വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റും സ്കൂൾ നേതൃത്വവും സംബന്ധിച്ച പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പര. സ്കൂൾ നേതൃത്വവുമായും അനുബന്ധ മേഖലകളുമായും ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട ആധുനിക ആശയങ്ങളും പുത്തൻ പ്രവണതകളും വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ പ്രവർത്തകരിലെത്തിക്കുക എന്ന ലക്ഷ്യത്തോടെ സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ പരമ്പരയിലെ 2ാമത്തെ പ്രഭാഷണമാണ് ഇന്ന് നടക്കുന്നത്. അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര പ്രശസ്തനായ വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വിചക്ഷണനും മലയാളിയുമായ പ്രൊഫസർ മോഹൻദാസ് ബി മേനോനാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ പ്രഭാഷകൻ. യുനെസ്കോ UNRWA എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൻ്റെ മുൻ ഡയറക്ടറും മലേഷ്യയിലെ ഓസൻ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ മുൻ ഡെപ്യൂട്ടി വൈസ് ചാൻസലറുമായ അദ്ദേഹം വിവിധ ദേശീയ ഏജൻസികളിൽ താക്കോൽ സ്ഥാനങ്ങളും വഹിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഓപ്പൺ ലേണിംഗ് സമ്പ്രദായത്തിലുള്ള അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ വൈദഗ്ധ്യവും അന്തർദേശീയ തലത്തിലുള്ള പ്രവർത്തന പരിചയസമ്പത്തും നമ്മുടെ കോവിഡ് കാല വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ മാനേജ്മെൻറ്റിനും ഓൺലൈൻ പഠന പ്രക്രിയയ്ക്കും വലിയ ഊർജം നൽകുമെന്നാണ് ഞാൻ പ്രതീക്ഷിക്കുന്നത്. സീമാറ്റ് കേരള 2021-22 നടപ്പിലാക്കാൻ ആവിഷ്കരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന അക്കാദമിക പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങളുടെ ഔപചാരികമായ തുടക്കം ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട മോഹൻദാസ് ബി മേനോന്റെ പ്രഭാഷണത്തോടെയാകുന്നത് തികച്ചും ഉചിതമാണ്. സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയുടെ 21-22 വർഷത്തെ അക്കാദമിക് പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇതോടെ തുടക്കം കുറിച്ചതായി നിങ്ങളുടെ ഏവരുടെ അനുവാദത്തോട് ഞാൻ പ്രഖ്യാപിക്കുന്നു. സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയുടെ വിവിധ പരിശീലന പരിപാടികൾക്കും ഇന്ന് പ്രൊഫസർ മോഹൻദാസ് ബി മേനോൻ നടത്താൻ പോകുന്ന പ്രഭാഷണത്തിനും വിജയാശംസകൾ നേരുന്നു. മാറ്റത്തിനൊപ്പം സഞ്ചരിക്കുവാൻ തയ്യാറായി ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്ന ഓരോരുത്തരെയും അനുമോദിക്കുകയും അഭിവാദ്യം ചെയ്യുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. എല്ലാവർക്കും ഓണാശംസകൾ. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
നന്ദി സർ. ലാൽ, അടുത്ത കാര്യപരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് കിടക്കാം.
വർഗീസ് സാർ ആണ് പ്രത്യേക അതിഥി. അദ്ദേഹത്തെ അങ്ങ് തന്നെ ക്ഷണിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ.
I would cordially invite Professor Verghese, and I have often read your articles published in various journals and newspapers for years together. Some of your colleagues had been my professors in the National Academy, so glad to meet you. And by the way, I just forgot, my colleague, Director General of Education, Mr. Jeevan Babu, is also on the line. Welcome, Jeevan. Yeah. Over to you, Mr. Verghese.
Thank you, sir. Respected Honorable Minister for General Education and Labor in Kerala, respected Principal Secretary, General Education, Mr. Mohammed Hanif, and my dear friend and renowned educationist, Mohan B. Menon, Professor Jamila Begum, Sri K. Jeevan Babu, Director General of Education, Dr. Prasad, Director of NCRT, SCRT, not NCRT, sorry, and all others, and especially Dr. Lal, who leads the program. It is indeed a great honor and a proud privilege for me to be part of these celebrations and to be part of this inaugural session of the programs of SIEMAT for the year 2021-22. I think my memories go back to 1994-95 when SIEMAT was established in Kerala. From separating it from the SIE that was in existence at that point of time, creating SCRT and SIEMAT, I have played a minor role in that, in formulating the guidelines for that. I'm also happy that there are so many people, professionals from the SIEMAT from outside Kerala. My special thanks and welcome to all those people, diets and SIEMATs, people who are responsible for these institutions outside Kerala. So I feel at home because I feel as if I am talking from Delhi. When we organize a meeting in Delhi, we have people from different states, and I have my words of appreciation for Dr. Lal for organizing such a meeting, which is whole India in nature. So one of the important dimensions of this change in attitude is that we try to see Kerala in its links, in its relationship, in comparison with what is happening in other states, not as a silo, not as an isolated instance or incident, but as part of the whole changes that are taking place in the educational landscape in India. So I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy to be part of it. Friends, for the benefit of all, let me say that when we envisaged SIEMAT, there are two basic objectives and functions of SIEMAT. One is to make the educational decision-making process at the state level evidence-based. The second, create capacities to manage, govern, and manage education. When we say that it should be evidence-based, this evidence comes from two parts. One, collecting and collating the information that is already available at the state level and at the national level, which the SIEMAT is doing. One of the departments that we envisage is responsible for this activity. Second, undertaking research in different domains and areas and on themes which will bring new evidence to the policymakers. And that becomes an intellectual think tank for the Ministry of Education in the states, and also becomes a guiding principle for school teachers, headmasters, and the educational managers in the state. That is one of the important dimensions. Second one, as I mentioned, is about the training that is taking place. Since you have an eminent speaker, renowned, well-known speaker, who will be speaking on the digital dimensions or digital learning in school education, which is the demand for the hour, demand of the hour, because suddenly we were forcefully transited from a face-to-face interaction to an online mode. What are the implications that such a transition is having is something that is to be discussed in detail. As it was very rightly pointed out by the Honorable Principal Secretary, that it has been a welcome change in many respects, but also has created, as he said, that back pain and neck pain, and also many other pains of transition, which is not related to physical pains alone. For the government, it's a headache. For the schools, it's a headache. And there are also digital disparities, which are increasingly becoming clearer and clearer. So I will not get into the details of any of these things. I like to make only 3 points related to SIEMAT. This is, friends, this is not only for Kerala, but also for other states, but something is very specific to Kerala. Let me come to my 3 points. Unlike many other states and regions, Kerala is the Mount Everest in social development in India. This is a term not used by me, used by some writers. The Mount Everest is the tallest mount in the world. It's a Mount Everest in social development in India. So education plays an important role in promoting and enhancing or increasing the height of Mount Everest of this social development. And we should plan education accordingly. The experience in Kerala sees that when you talk about education plan, we are used to plan for an expanding system of education. But Kerala is facing a different situation, a declining population and a student population. So there are two elements to this change that you're talking about. There is a decline in the child population in general. And what is more important is that 2020 National Family Health Survey shows that there is a decline in the girl child population. This has never happened in India, also in Kerala in the recent past. We are proud to say that our sex ratio is 1,047, 1,055 for every 1,000 children and boys. Girls used to be of that number. But for the first time, it is indicated in 2020 survey that the total number of girls per 1,000 boys population is 951. So we are taking a position just like any other state. This is some of the important dimensions. And if you look at the GER, it is almost universal at the elementary level and also very high at the secondary level and at the higher education level. So it is not the access issue which is of prime importance. So initially, one of the issues that SIEMAT has to link is that what happens when the child population is declining, what happens, or how do we train for or plan for a contracting system? Whereas the whole India, the question is that of how to plan for an expanding system. This is a unique characteristics that Kerala challenge that Kerala has to address. Because this has a lot of implications. Because there are many small schools, non-viable schools coming into existence in Kerala. It is estimated that in 2018-19, there are around 5,700 non-viable small schools in Kerala, and many schools are getting closed down. So, for example, found that Polyakala LP school in Vidura has only 2 children and they have 5 teachers. Similarly, you find that Sagaram LP school in Kadiyam teachers. There were roughly around 5,000 plus schools which have less number of children, less than 20 discussing these issues before the schools are closed down. So one issue that I wanted to highlight is that how do you plan for contraction of schools and how do we try to see that the government schools and aided schools are saved from closing down. A good trend that I see in the last 4 or 5 years is that there is a reverse flow of children from the private aided, unaided schools to government schools. That's a very positive sign. Let's reconcile the issue of social justice with the excellence that you're talking about. And why I'm making this point, in 1994, when we started doing what is learner achievement studies in Malappuram, in Wayanad, and in Kannur districts, what we found was that the learner achievement in Kerala is country. In other words, the success that you have made in bringing all the children have not translated in terms of bringing them to the learning levels which are expected to be attained by them. So what is to be done? How this will be done? This is a different type of planning question, Dr. Lal, that you have to address in one form or the other. I'm not saying that these are not addressed, but this needs to be addressed more vigorously. All the studies, learner achievement studies after 1994 also indicated that this learning that is taking place in Kerala is far below what we expect Kerala schools to achieve. A third dimension that is very important is that we discussed about language issues. We discussed about so many issues in Kerala, but I don't want to get into the details. But how do we place education in the context of middle class jobs? I'm not talking about how to make education middle class, but for the people of middle class origin. I'm saying that middle class jobs, Keralites look for middle class jobs, whereas the working class jobs are taken away by people from the migrating from the neighboring states. And Keralites migrate to Gulf countries to do the lower level jobs, But we in Kerala look for middle class jobs. So how do we tune our educational system? How do we tune our language policy? How do we tune our curriculum processes to suit it to the middle class jobs? That becomes an important dimension. I'm raising these three issues in the sense that not these issues are to be taken up immediately. I'm sure that SIEMAT, with its capacity and under the dynamic leadership of Dr. Lal, will be in a position to continue with that. And I think that gives us the route, the way forward to look towards how SIEMAT will be in a position to play a think tank role, a leading role in terms of advising the ministry and also supporting the capacity development programs in Kerala. I think some of these elements that I mentioned are also equally applicable to SIEMAT in other states who are also participating, and also some of the dimensions of diet, especially in the Department of Educational Planning and Management departments that. So I think one of the important dimensions to do this when we try to design and when we try to prepare a plan for SIEMAT in Kerala was that there is a need for some core permanent faculty members in the institution. This I will say that we had several discussions with the former minister, and he was very considerate and helpful to this. And this I am making as a humble request and a proposition to our honorable minister and also to the principal secretary and director general of education that, if we want to go ahead with the progress that he made, the achievements that he have made in the last 5 or 6 years in terms of the SIEMAT and in reshaping the SIEMAT, and if we want to move forward, we need a core faculty which is regular, permanent, and they will be the people who will be able to carry the culture of research, the culture of training, the culture of capacity development. So let us create this institute to create a culture within the state to move forward in the context of the changes that you're talking about, to address itself as the major institutional arrangement to advise the ministry, advise the education departments to move forward in a forward-looking manner. That is my only request. I wish Dr. Lal, under whose dynamic leadership, many of the initiatives have been taken, and I have, as a member of the executive committee, I see the progress that have been made over a period of time. I wish you the very best for the SIEMAT, and I thank Honorable Minister and also the Principal Secretary and the Director General of Education and all the great people assembled here. And it's my great pleasure to be part of this where Professor Mohan Menon, the renowned international expert in the area of education and technology, not only the theoretical understanding, but also the practical knowledge is present. And you will be starting a new era of a new dimension of education process and provision through his lecture and the discussions. Thank you very much, Dr. Lal. Thank you very much for forcing me to come for 10 minutes because I was not in a position. Initially, I was not willing to come. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hanit, sir. There is some network issue with Hanit, sir, I think. We'll go back to him soon. But as per the program, it is Sri K. Jeevan Babu sir has to deliver the felicitation address right now. So, with your permission, Hanit sir, I would like to invite Director General of Education, Sri K. Jeevan Babu IAS, who is always with us with the same vigor and support. Sir, DG sir, please.
Respected Sri V. Shivankoti, the Honorable Minister of for General Education and Labour, respected Principal Secretary Sri APM Mohammed Hanish, our special guest for the day, Professor N.V. Verghese, Vice Chancellor NIPA, and the lecturer for the day, Professor Mohandas B. Menon, Professor Jamila Begum, all the dignitaries who are present in this wonderful function from inside and outside of Kerala, and other distinguished persons. It's indeed a proud moment for me to be part of this wonderful initiative being put forward by SIEMAT. Digital education or digital learning in school education, the way forward. The lecture has been organized by SIEMAT, and we have participants from different parts of the country, so it will be a proper sharing of experience from the different parts of the country. It will be shown. So the words digital education or online education or e-education, it has been in the academic world for long. We are talking about digital education for the last many years, but most of the times when it comes to digital education, it finally comes to creating some assets, especially in the form of electronic equipments like laptop, maybe some projectors, computers, speakers, and other things, and creation of some content that can be helpful for teaching. But the COVID pandemic has changed the entire world scenario. It has made a lot of changes in the way in which we function. It has made a lot of changes in the social, economic, educational world. So education has had one of tremendous impacts during this time. As we all know, Kerala was one of the first states which had a COVID case in India. The first COVID case was reported last year, 2020, January 30. So when the first COVID case came to Kerala, like many of us, we also one of an incident, COVID or H1N1 or the swine flu or any of the other epidemics. We know that a lot of epidemics are happening all over the world, and this will also continue for some time and it will stop. But the intentions of the coronavirus was entirely different. It was there to stay, not like our expectation. We expected that it would go quickly, maybe within 1 month or 2 months, but the coronavirus thought that it will stay there for a much bigger period. So it's almost 1.5 years now. Even in our wildest dream, we never thought that we will be closing the schools. We will be locking down our entire infrastructure, our entire systems in the name of a pandemic. So even in our most, ferocious dreams, we never thought this. But what happened is that since Kerala closed our schools by March 20, when we were expected to start the new academic year by June, we were not able to open the schools. So when the schools were not expected to be opened by June, there should be some alternative method in which we should be able to reach the students. So various methods were thought of. So I always thinks or speaks about this in many of the meetings. The corona has come in 2020. If it was in 1990 or 1980, the situation would have been an entirely different world. There were no internet connectivity. There was no Wi-Fi. There was no modern softwares. So the level of interaction that could have been possible by 1980s or 1990s would have been entirely different. But 2020 altogether has become a different story. So when we were not able to open the schools, we thought how we will engage our students, how we will ensure that all the students will be in our learning path. So then the thinking of digital education, how we will be able to convey our ideas, our lessons, our classes, how our teachers will be able to engage our students. All these things were thought of. And finally, we thought that we'll go for a broadcast medium. So in Kerala, we have the Witness channel. The Witness channel is completely owned by the education department only. So we thought that we will be using the channel for providing our classes. So the classes were started, 1 to 12 classes we started. It became a huge hit all over Kerala. And we were able to ensure that almost 100% of the students were watching the channels. But digital learning has its own negative sides also. Because the curiosity, the awareness, the flair for learning which will be created by the initial level of digital learning may not continue because we are dealing more with a machine. So that also happened in our system also, that the initial curiosity will fade away after some point of time. So when the government decided to open digital classes this time also, we have decided that we will go one step forward. We will start online classes also. Last year also almost 50 to 60% of the schools have already started online classes. This year we have decided that we will go with more online classes in almost all the schools. So as I said earlier, digital learning or e-learning or the online learning has its own positive advantages. People or this is one of the best methods that can be available at the time when we are restricted in our homes like a pandemic. This is one method when the students can access learning, can be part of learning, even without coming to the school. This is one thing which will be available 24/7. Not like a teacher who is coming to school at a particular point of time, maybe from 10 to 10:30. But the classes in a digital medium or an online medium can be made available 24/7 into 365. So that is another advantage. Even the students can have all the assignments and everything that can be submitted in through the digital medium itself. But it has its own problems. The direct interaction which is expected from a school teacher, the social learning environment that is being provided by the school, the direct learning experience with the child gets from within the class, from within the peers. The other activities like arts, sports, the social service, the other activities that will be heavily affected. But what I was saying, we can see that the COVID has been a watershed event in the entire education history, will be a watershed event even in the entire history of the world. So by and by, the states and other countries across the world have started opening their schools. Even though vaccines for kids are not available as of now, we hope that that will be available at the earliest, so that even if the pandemic continues for many more years, we will be able to start the schools. We will be vaccinating all the teachers. That process is going on. But since vaccines are not available for the kids, many of the state governments has been skeptical that they have to open the schools as of now. A number of cases can also be reported because of the interaction between students. But anyhow, the physical opening of the schools is very much required because that is the work forward. But at the same time, the added advantage from the experience during COVID will be is that the digital learning aspect will be taken to each and every student. The teachers would be more conversed about the various aspects of digital learning, not like a theory that is being taught during a training session, but rather than that, they'll be knowing what digital learning is, what are the different methods, how it can be used, because our teachers are so good at that now. They learned most of the things by their own. They have been given large number of training sessions. They will be improvising on their teaching methods. So all these things are happening parallelly. That will be an added advantage when we start our schools. But there are a lot of things to be learned from the digital learning. I think Professor Mohandas B. Menon, who is an expert in this subject, will be giving a large number of ideas and will be referring to a large number of initiatives that have happened across the world. So that would be a wonderful lecture to hear. So thanking each one of you to be present in this wonderful initiative and thanking Lal and his team for this wonderful initiative again. Thanking each one of you once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeevan Babu sir. I think today's speeches, all the speeches, principal secretaries, DGs, then honorable ministers, then Professor Varghese, all these speeches have hailed this program to a different level. What we expected is a different one, but now this has reached to a different corner, I think, not to the corner, to the center of the discussion, national discussion today. So I think with the next program, which is the first program, official program of the 21-22 of SIEMAT Kerala, just after the inaugural function of the academic functioning with the lecture of Professor Mohan B. Menon. I have already said about Mohan B. Menon, sir. We know him. He is the former chairman of National Institute of Open Schooling. Then he was associated with as Deputy Vice Chancellor at Wawasan University, Malaysia, then UNESCO, and also so many educational responsibilities he had done along with international educational experts, I think. So that is why a lot of people are awaiting for right now in this Google Meet and before the YouTube live stream. So many people are now eagerly waiting for his speech. I'm very thankful to Professor Varghese sir for linking me with Dr. Mohandas B. Menon, and he, at the moment, he agreed to talk about the current situation in Kerala as well as in the whole globe with regard to the school education. Now he has given the title Digital Learning in School Education, the Way Forward. So many people are have apprehensions what Dr. Mohandas B. Menon is saying about digital learning in school education. He is going to campaign about digital techniques or machines or like that, or he is going to say before us the challenges of digital learning. Anyway, I'm not standing in between you people as well as with Dr. Mohandas B. Menon. Right now, on behalf of SIEMAT Kerala, on behalf of all of us here, I invite Dr. Mohandas B. Menon for delivering the lecture. Sir.
Good morning, good afternoon rather. Good afternoon, all of you. And thank you, Dr. Lal, for introducing me. I hope all of you can hear my voice. I was all through sitting through the program, the inaugural program, and all the speakers, the Honorable Minister of Education, the Principal Secretary of Education, then Director General of Education, Dr. Professor Varghese, all their speeches gave a sort of a way forward. Basically, all were the introductions for a way forward, not only for Kerala, but for the whole country with regard to school education in general. And as each state may have its own special needs and try to organize the school system, have the policies in place, and will be the responsibility of each state in a individual manner, rather than thinking of a national level plan for school education in the country. I'm not too happy in centralizing these things, so it is state's responsibility to go into the specific needs. And when we talk about that, the SIEMAT has a special role to play because it actually talks about the whole management of the system, the development of leadership in that system, providing the required development programs, the faculty or the staff development programs at all levels. In this context, as Dr. Lal mentioned, that we have come to a level, it has raised the level of our discussion, and I am asked to continue that. So I should also be trying to keep that level, higher level of the deliberation that we are going to have, not only in this talk, but all these coming days. I did suggest to Dr. Lal that I would prefer to call this as digital learning, as compared to many other terms that has been used not only in Kerala, but all over India, including the National Education Policy, which talks about several words like e-learning, like online learning, like open education, open learning, open universities, all has something to do with using the technology in reaching out to the students. I also felt that we should focus on school education because it is not right to talk about a generic application of digital learning for all education. The way we may plan for higher education can be very different. But school education as a whole can also be not the same right from pre-primary education to senior secondary education, higher secondary education. It can be different. The system, but there should be a broad system that should be in place if we are going into digital learning. Now, so the way forward is what we are looking at, but it's also important for us to see where we were before the pandemic. January, as the Director General of Education mentioned, is when Kerala had the first case, and then Kerala rather was quite proactive, I should say, in thinking about what it should do to take care of the problems that might happen. And Kerala had also an advantage. Victor Channel is not, I understand, is a new one. It has been there for years. I remember going into the production in Trivandrum, Victor Channel years back, maybe 10 years back. I think Victor Channel was already there, whether it was under the School of Education, I mean, the education department or not, I don't remember. So it had a capacity to respond to that immediate need that was coming, how to take care of that and think of programs, and coming out of programs and in a war footing, and then make it available to different classes. So that was a major thing that it could do. Similarly, other states also, I'm sure, would have come out with and have come out with. I mean, I may not be able to give specific evidences or statistics about that, but I'm sure they also responded to the situation. Now, in different ways, and digital learning, which I would include, digital learning is a broader concept, and it will include not only online learning, but also offline learning. It will include all the resources which are digital resources. So everything that one would call, and the digital word itself came up only after the 80s, if you remember, that when from analog to digital, that we moved, the computer, all its resources were made into digital resources, and that made all these things possible. So that's why that becomes very important for us to remember. Now, I want to present this talk in three parts. The first part is that pre-pandemic time. It's important to think about that. We had a lot of things happening in the pre-pandemic time. Whether we took that very seriously at that time, whether we applied that adequately or effectively in our school system, one can always think about. Then we have the pandemic time, that's almost more than 1.5 years now. And then we have to, I don't know when that will happen, sooner or later, we will be in a post-pandemic scenario. So all these three we had to think of, and we had to plan for the post-pandemic scenario. The pre-pandemic scenario, yes, I mean, right from the beginning, I remember that after our independence, that in school education and higher education, all the time we will talk about ICT integration. We have to have ICT integration so that we can make our school education or higher education, for that matter, not only more accessible to students, but also better in quality. But the major change that happened, as I said earlier, is when we started having, when we digitized the whole computer technology itself. And then everything was being available, not only available in a digital form, but also we were able to communicate that all over the world immediately. Today we can send a message from to anybody in the world within seconds. That person, not even seconds, split of a second, that person would have received that. So that's the type of thing that it went into. And there are a lot of developments that happened since late 80s, and the early 2020, let us say. A lot of developments happened, like all the open source software, open educational resources, online courses, MOOCs, and social media, several developments that happened. But I should say that it did not really make a substantial change to the Indian classrooms. And that's not only in India, in many other countries, that's what happened. or some of the countries which are more proactive probably would have gone into making the classrooms more digitally accessible, and the children can be access the resources as well as interact with learners anywhere in the world, anytime, not only in the classroom, but if connectivity is there, even at their own houses. So that possibility existed at that time. But we did not apply because there was no immediate need to go for that. We were in a comfort zone because our classes were going on, our teachers were teaching, children were going into the class. We, of course, would talk about improving the quality. We did talk about smart classes, smart boards, and putting technology into the classroom. We did make efforts, no doubt about that. But then using that technology very effectively for the classroom processes, I think we didn't do too well, because the teaching was more or less going on in a traditional manner. Many teachers did a great job because they were good teachers and they know how to interact with the children and make the learning environment very conducive, very learner engaged. Many teachers were good. I have observed several teachers, I mean, in Kerala itself during the DPP SSA time when I had visited many schools in Kerala. Even at that time, Kerala was considered at that time for one of the major achievements during DPEP of the joyful learning and such things, and how children enjoyed that. I'm not sure whether teachers and parents enjoyed that to that extent, but children did enjoy that. So these were going on, but technology was not the focus. Rather, even at that time, I remember that when we were talking about using some technology, many felt, even the experts who were involved in the DPEP projects and all felt that technology will make it very mechanical. It is, it's like, you are coming from IGNO. I used to work with IGNO at that time. And then, you're talking about directly sending some, providing some programs for them, but that may not suit us. So there was a lot of inhibition, a lot of, I mean, I very mildly put, a lot of reaction, resistance to such changes. But, and then another area where there was some development going on even before the pandemic was an area called the learning for life in our times, the 21st century skills. Why I am bringing the 21st century skills, whether we use digital technology or traditional technology, we have to understand clearly that what are the children really trying to achieve, or what do we want them to achieve through the schools system, and how they can become more competent to be effective citizens, not only in their job, but in their life itself. And 21st century skills talk about quite few of those skills, and it is not really knowing the theories or laws of physics or chemistry or the information that is available and memorizing that, and then that being assessed probably is not what we want them to do. But unfortunately, that has still continued. That has still continued. What I call as the syllabus-based teaching, the information-based teaching, not really the outcome-based teaching. You see, children have to achieve certain competencies. Today, you don't really have to remember many of those information because you can always Google and get that information digitally. And children are good at that. We all know that sometimes children are better than the teachers in doing it, because they were, all of them were born into what we call as to the digital world. After 80s, late 80s, children who are there today in the schools are all digital natives. They all were born into that. They are, to them, it is like, what can I say, that it's like what we found radio when we were born. Older people like we were born, the only technology available was not even transistor, but the radio. So we were quite happy with the radio, not telephone to that extent. But children today are very, very different, even without the schooling. formal schooling. So when they come in and they find it very easy to deal with technology situation, and I'm sure many would have found it. Maybe it's a good study that CMAT should be able to do, how children took all these changes. Although we have read about that in the newspapers when the pandemic came, how the children reacted to that and all this. I will come to that. So that's probably was the situation pre-pandemic. Technology was available. Not that technology was made available after the pandemic started. It was probably not available to the extent needed for all children to access digital learning or digital resources because of lack of hardware or the devices, or even lack of broadband connectivity, which is a problem even today. We talk about digital divide even today. So that's something we have seriously started looking into today, mainly because that we had to compulsorily, we had to use that. We were compelled to use that rather than we used it on our own will. I don't know, I mean, whether all of you agree to that, but that has been my observation. Now, start of the pandemic, we all remember that time, the lockdown and the social distancing, and the children are not able to go to the school. Why children? Adults are not going to work. So it actually made a big change. It was a disrupting sort of a situation. It disrupted our life, and including education. Not only education, but life itself. All dimensions of life it affected. So we had to find a solution for that. So we know, not that we were unaware that how to reach the children. We can use telecast, we can use online provision of teaching, because those platforms were available, like WhatsApp was available, or the Facebook was available, and even reaching out through digital channels was available. All these were available, not that they were not available, but they were not very popular or not available to all to access. But for the providers, they were available. So we found a solution, because the providers who are mainly at the state level or at the national level, they straight away went into that and started putting programs or teaching classes to the children. Now, think about the teachers. Teachers would have found it a bit problem. I remember doing some online programs for colleges in Cochin, and some of the teachers really in the initial stages found it difficult to even deal with those devices. They hadn't used, some of them hadn't used it at all. Some of them did not even have WhatsApp, or some of them, they had smartphones, most of them, but they used it only for telephone purposes, or at the most WhatsApp or SMS and such things. So, and another issue that the government faced, and that was probably an opportunity also, was that the cost effectiveness of this. There was also an issue of if children are not going into, in Kerala it happened with private schools, not in the government. That was an issue, not issue in the government schools, that if the teachers are not coming, going to the school, and children are not going to the school, then why this big fees being taken by the private schools? The school said that we have to organize all these things. So there were even cost-related issues that happened. So we had this experience for the last over 1.5 years now, and still we are not come to the earlier situation, post-pandemic stage. We are still in the pandemic stage. And everybody has something to say about the online learning or digital learning, whatever you call it, because all of them have seen it or read about it, has discussed in the media. Anybody, all stakeholders for that matter, will have something to say. The policymakers, administrators, teachers, children, parents, general public, and everybody has seen part of the application of digital learning. That's what I would say. Just like an elephant, some blind men trying to understand an elephant, conceptualize an elephant. Each one, the parent would say that this is what happens, and when children learn through this, they sleep in the school, at home, and then the providers don't know about it, even when it is an live program going on. Forget about recorded ones, but the evidently a live program going on. All these problems, I don't want to repeat those things because we all know about that. And children was absolutely confused about it, as far as I could see, because they might have been happy that they are partly that they are at home, they are with their family members, but then they had to learn. And earlier, at least, when you come back from school, there will be some time to play and then go for finishing the homework and such things. Here, they couldn't even differentiate between homework and actual work of the school. So they were also quite confused about it. And so policymakers now, those who were rigid earlier about using technology or digital learning, they could modify their mind and their policy to take care of the situation, because they had to. It was a compulsion, because you have to answer to the public that what are you doing as far as school education is concerned. Administrators have to, of course, manage the systems. So they also, whether they willingly or happily, I'm not sure, but they try to put in place the systems for making the digital learning possible for the schools, and which meant that there should be technology, the devices available, and a large number of smartphones were made available for lesser cost. Even the makers of the smartphones, they came out with cheaper ones, and the price would have come down, I'm sure. Then the television, for example, because in Kerala especially, it has been mostly television being provided, not only the schools, but also to individual learning groups or even individual homes, those of the marginalized children, so that they can listen to the Victor channel programs or watch that. And parents, of course, supported to the extent they understood, but the whole effectiveness of this. One thing probably the parent would have found is that they could monitor what the children are doing better because they were in front of them, in front of the parents. Some of the schools, of course, even organized online interaction between the teachers and the children on a regular basis. Some of the states did that. Some schools did that. I'm not sure whether in Kerala, I know in Kerala even government schools did that. Some of the government schools nearby were interacting with the children even through WhatsApp messages and talking to them and such things. Parents, they made it a point to bring the parents also into the picture. So there was a regular interaction between the parent, the teacher, and the learner together or separately, and to make sure that children learn and do the activities given to them, which they can do at home, engaging them in activities. So children started doing so many things under different subjects. Sometimes it is not even easy to find out whether that activity was serving some children. They did enjoy doing it. They have been also recording things on examination, but it should be an ongoing process, continuous evaluation, etc. But that came down to only some 20% or 30% for internal assessment. Different states have different ways of doing it, but all dependent. The credibility was, I don't know whether that was credibility I should call, but people only trusted the final examination somehow. That has changed quite a bit now. So I would say that there were problems due to the use of digital technology, digital learning devices or modes. There were also opportunities. Now let's look at the problems. Yeah, we saw that children missing direct social interaction. They can only interact through the online with other peers or teachers, other learners or teachers. Children missing physical activities. Home routine affected. I mean, it's a very interesting thing. It is not the children alone. Now, how many smartphones you can have in a home at home? So, and there are 3 children studying, and they may not be going, all of them going to the government schools, one system only, but maybe in the private schools too. So they needed more gadgets, and then the time sort of timing problems and such things, and along with that, some of the parents were working during that time from home. All these things confused the situation at home. And the teacher's role changed. Teachers adjusted to that situation because that was their job. If they hadn't done that, that would have affected their livelihood itself. So they had to do that, although I'm not sure all were happy with what was being done. But I should say that some of the observations I have made around my neighborhood, that the teachers tried to adjust and they tried to provide as much they could individually to home. And not only in getting the materials for them, but interacting with them, etc. But how long they can continue to do that? And I was told by some teachers who are working with private schools, the teacher, they started, the children are over, then they had to go into a teachers meeting together, and then there is an evening, there is a teacher parent meeting, and like morning 8 to night 8, yes, at this point of time, they may be tolerating it because they all know that this is a difficult time for us. It's a transition time. So such problems were also there. Digital divide did affect availability of gadgets, connectivity, the SIEMAT more in a micro level too, not only at macro level issues. So if you ask any of the teachers and children, one of the things that they would say, when are we going back to the schools? We all would like that to happen. They should all go, children should go back to the school. So that's what is the post-pandemic they are thinking of, what would be the situation. Now, opportunities, if you look at this pandemic time, gave us an opportunity to think differently. The change of mindset. Digital learning becoming more acceptable to the children as well as parents. I'm not sure they're fully acceptable, but more acceptable too. There is more availability of gadgets, yes. Connectivity is also improved private sector to make the providers, the broadband providers also to provide connectivity in a cheaper way, and I hope that would continue. So the opportunities for able to go to use digital learning. Technology providing cost-effective solutions. I think this is one thing which, as the system, should think about this. That in the professional area, especially you find now in software and the computer technology and such areas that many companies are even thinking of that people can work from home. They may even not change that. They may not want everybody to come to the office because that is cheaper for them. They need not have to provide that infrastructure, expensive infrastructure, even if they give a little more salary to the employees, that probably may be cheaper for the employers. But as far as education is concerned, especially public education as a service, that is not something which should be the major consideration, but surely that also should be a consideration because we would like to make the education cost effective. Now, another danger that might come, the teacher community see, how they see it. Will they look at that now we don't, our involvement in the teaching is also limited because there is a Victor channel, there is some resources provided online, and all these are available. The teacher's role itself gets I think the role, I believe that the role cannot be the same to continue like the earlier ways. We cannot go back to the earlier school environment because the technology, use of digital learning has learning or offline learning, resources digitally made available. This has made possible a more individualized and learning. Individualized means he will be now given materials according to that child's needs, if we do it properly. It can be inclusive learning, but because we can provide different type of materials when it comes to disadvantaged children or differentially abled children. All these are possibilities that might be explored. This is a very, very good area for research and development again. As you remember that it is during the early part of the pandemic time that the national education policy got launched. That was July 2020. As it was July 2020, it is very clear that all the experiences of the pandemic, the way that we organized education during pandemic time was not fully captured by the policy. They couldn't have done it because end of July 2020 is when the NEP was launched, and this 1 year is over now. And the interacting with the different people in different states tell me that states have not really fully discussed and come out with implementation policy of the NEP. So what directions we can take from NEP as far as technology is concerned, as far as digital learning is concerned? Yes, the NEP has fully endorsed the use of digital learning. So that is a plus point, but they have not conceptualized digital learning vis-a-vis e-learning, offline learning, online learning, or MOOCs, and several terms they have used it. MOOCs, especially in the higher education context, may not be in the school education. Open education, they have used one for the other without properly discussing and conceptualizing that. I find that as a miss in the NEP. But I think that is something which we can do during the implementation strategies are developed. So what to talk about NEP just provide, it does provide the required support for using digital technology or digital learning in future also. And they also came out with even certain infrastructure needed for that purpose. They proposed that. They will, of course, be implementing that, like the National Education Technology Forum. This is something they plan to set up. They also want institutions like CIET to come out with more materials. In fact, not only CIET, but also other agencies. So resources they have to. They have already created that. NCRT is very much into that. And even SCRT must be coming out and with materials, and there are resources that can be, digital resources that can be created. So they will be supporting all these things. But one thing they have said, which is very important, I feel that's important to us, because they say that as far as information is concerned, the classrooms should not be used just for in communicating that information. You see, they did not, of course, they did not say in the words that I am putting it, because They say while computers have largely surpassed humans in leveraging factual and procedural knowledge, our education at all levels excessively burdens students with such knowledge at the expense of developing their higher order competencies. So they surely talk about the higher order competencies, the 21st century skills that we were talking about, etc. So if that is the focus, a classroom should be in the focus on the not as a subject provision, or developing the concepts or the teaching the topics as a major area, but it should be, the change should happen that they should be doing it so that children can be more engaged in the classroom learning, even when they go back to the classroom. Even at home, they should be able to do that, but then more so when they go back to the classroom. Now coming to the last part. So this is the pandemic situation. Of course, we can discuss that in the interaction session if needed. Now going into the to the post-pandemic, the question now is, will it be going back to the old ways? Will it be? We may not go back to, or rather I would say we should not go back to. We should not go back to the old situations, old pre-pandemic situation where children will go back to this classroom and will learn as they used to do earlier. I'm sure that it will not happen. It will not happen. But to what extent that classroom can change is what not only the classroom, the school, the support of the school, the support of the state education department, all can change in the what do you call the post-pandemic. In fact, there's a good word that has come out with, I liked the word very much. The post-pandemic is known as the new normal situation. The post-pandemic, which will be different, will become the normal. So it is a new normal situation. So what we should be doing is that we should consolidate and strengthen our gains and learn from our mistakes and correct them. That's what we should be doing. A lot of things that we have done, and we should not discontinue those things. They just continue to be there. Like if there is a class, digital class available for children for all classes as provided by Victor Channel, that will continue to be there. Now, if that is going to be there, then what will happen in the classroom? What should happen in the classroom? Will that be repeated? Or the children will be only shown that? Or will there be a discussion after that? So designing the classroom becomes very important. What should happen in the classroom? That becomes very important, and that will have to be done at the state level, a broad framework for that design. And also at the school level, there has to be ways in which the schools can provide the infrastructure, connectivity, and such things in the school, so that the teachers will organize the digital the classroom in a different way. It will become a digital environment, if I may put it that way. See, I remember about 2 years back going to one of the colleges in Kochi, and when I asked the teachers, it was a teacher development program. I was giving the introductory talk. And then I asked the teachers that, don't you use the digital environment? Because many of these things that you teach in the class is available in the Google. Maybe there are open educational resources. There are a lot of work that has happened in the area of open educational resources, which do not have even copyright restrictions. So don't you use that? So they did not say anything in the formal time. Later, the faculty, one of the persons came and said, "Sir, inside the college, we are not allowed to access the web. That can be done only after 5 o'clock." Because that was seen at that time as a disturbance to the learning rather than something which will facilitate the learning. I'm sure many of those colleges or schools will not say that today, because we know that it can facilitate learning. It is not disturbing the learning. We told children not to bring smartphones to the classroom. Should we say that after this? I don't know. Maybe we'll still say that, provided you can provide the connectivity and access in the classroom for every child. Otherwise, the gadget has to be there with the child also if something has to be accessed. So I think we'll have to think of a very different scenario, and then the classroom activities will have to be designed accordingly, and that will become the new normal for the future. So now coming to the how that can be organized, that's what is we are more worried about. The way forward, that the post-pandemic, if it's a new normal situation, then how that will be, the organization of that will be, is the question. I am expressing some thoughts here, and which can be discussed. One is that we want to focus on the 21st century skills. There is no alternative to that, according to me, because as an educationist, I feel that that is something which we have to focus. We should change the way we look at curriculum transaction. It has to be different. It cannot be just giving information, giving lectures by the teacher. And the digital learning possibilities can make it happen better. How the digital learning applications can make the classroom a more learner engaged one. So that's what we should really be thinking of. See, the children have to be prepared so that when they become go to their higher education or go and start their life, and in the job market, nobody is going to ask the information that's available. Everybody would say that if I want to know anything about anything, I can always Google and find out something. So which that is the case, that what are those competencies that we really want them to have? The 21st century skills we talked about, I'll just say something because about that, because it's learning skills, literacy skills, and life skills. These are the three things that we really will have to develop in the children. When they go out of the school, they should have those competencies. And that is related to learning skills, is related to critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, communication, information literacy, that is literacy skills, information literacy, social skills. I'm not going into the details of that, but we can easily see if this is our curriculum outcomes, will it be enough that we teach in the same manner as we teach in the that there has to be everybody will have to have it will continue to have the use of technology, go back to school. I'm not the one who believe that, or some people say, no, they don't have to go back to school. No, I'm sure nobody will agree to that. When they go back to the school, we should take them to a blended learning environment. And in that blended learning environment, there should be opportunities that it should be a learner-centered environment. Every learner should be able to get what individually that learner is able to get, should get, not able to. Is one talking that so which would mean that what happens in the class should not be a one common lecture given by the teacher. Engaged, the activities, collaborative, and they should be able to interact with the other learners. They should be able to do some activities there and come out with their own, reflect on that and come out with their own results of that in small problems, small activities. I'm not even in the lower classes. I would say they should be engaged in some games and some sort of a simple activities. From there, they can learn something, talk to the children and all these. Maybe in the primary, we do that quite a bit, but not in the higher classes. We think that when they come to higher classes, then they should be able to learn some knowledge, get some concepts, and then reproduce that in the examination. That probably assessment will then have to be changed also. So these are the type of things they would require. And there are, if you look at the learning processes that they have to go through, there should be opportunities for self-learning. Now, when it comes to self-learning, you don't have to give an online lecture for them or digital lecture for them. It can be offline materials made available to them. It is offline, not online. Okay. So that should be available to them, so individuals can learn the way they are learning today from home. They can still do that, so that those basic digital materials, open educational resources. Then when they are in the classroom, they should be able to have dialogue not only with the teachers, but also with other learners. So for that, it is a face-to-face situation. When they are in face-to-face, we should not bother them too much about digital learning there. They have to talk to each other, they have to interact, discuss, and then, because they have already read something, maybe the teacher can check whether all of them have read it or not, have a question and answer session in the beginning, and then go for learner-learner interaction. They can surely have a digital interaction also, because today the social media like WhatsApp is very, it's not used for educational purposes to the extent needed. But if you ask a learner, many to send to like we have to create a network, what do you call the about the whole village of learners who would be there within the school or within a classroom. If there are 30, 40 children in a class, they can all be part of a WhatsApp group, and there are interactions that will give go on among the learners. This is also digital learning. This is not online learning. This is not offline learning. This is digital learning. See, so that also can happen. And a proper design or combination of these things is what we may require in a new classroom situation, new school. One is what is happening within the class, where there's institutional infrastructure will be there, whatever the school can provide, so that there is the technology needed. It need not be always online, but to play that thing, like for example, offline video to be shown, such things. So that is within the classroom. And then the classroom interaction that will happen face to face. What will happen within the environment of the school? That is the community level. In the community level, there will be already Kerala schools. I know that they do a lot of community related work, some good schools. So that interaction with the community can be face to face, as well as that online network, the community. What I used to, not online, digital network community of the learners, as the learners and some of the leaders of the community can also be there. That is the next level of the of access that the children should have. And the third level is the resources that comes from outside. That resources that comes from outside comes through and any institution outside. I'm not telling that we should leave the children to go and find the resources from there. No, that would be the teacher's job. the teacher will have to really identify what are those resources that would be useful for a particular class according to their level, and organize those in the in the class, and tells children to go and see that video program or read that short material before they come to the class. And then assessment also can happen when they engaged in certain activities, and that they are also judged according to their performance in that activity, rather than only asking a multiple choice question at the end of the unit or at the end of the class. So the assessment will have to be also rethought. And we know that technology, digital technology is used for the assessment, but it is mostly used today for a centralized assessment done work, which is digital for children, teachers, and community. There has to be a good teacher guidance or a counselor support. Guidance counselor support. Why guidance? And that guidance counselor need not be in the school, every school. That can be an support provided digitally, online. So, or offline, chatting or WhatsApp or whatever, using those applications. And there should be a repository created for every school. Repositories, we know. Digital repositories are created at the national level. SWAYAM is a good example in higher education. NCRT has digital repository for school education. Digitally, that will be a good repository. In SCRT may have, mainly for the teacher development and teacher training and such purposes, that repository can be there. But every school can also have a repository, because we really don't know much of money, need much of money to create that. It is only putting together all these into a open source software a school can have, where all the materials created by children and teachers in the school can also be kept as in the repository. They are valuable materials, and we lose those materials normally. Today, being in the digital environment, that can be done. The external resources, as I said, Diksha is one that the Government of India has, which provides a platform for repositories. All these are available, and they can be accessed by the children, by the teachers, or by children with the help of the teachers. Now, I should conclude now. I think I have taken probably more time than I am given. It is a difficult area. I know that it is difficult in the sense it is not in terms of understanding it, but to make that happen for future. A new way of managing our system, where blended learning will be the blended learning environment, digital plus face-to-face. The community, the curriculum transaction will have to be at the local level, community level. I mean, we always talked about this district level is a very important decentralized possibility. Maybe one has to do it more seriously today. And there is a very conducive change of mindset today. I think that has to be used fully. And there has to be hardware connectivity, strong hardware and connectivity, which of course at the state and national level, one will have to work towards that. And when it comes to digital learning, unfortunately, we during the pandemic time, we used mostly a vertical way of connection, like Victor channel providing it to the learners. I mean, they may interact to some extent, but again with the people in the Victor channel. The same way many states have done that, and then that is needed. I'm not telling that is not needed. But along with that, there should be a horizontal networking. That's why I'm emphasizing the community level digital network through a social media platform or a specially prepared platform for that purpose, if Government of India decides for that. And that can be used for children to interact among themselves and the teachers in the community. I think with that, I would conclude here. I should thank SIEMAT, the Education Department of Kerala, and I should also thank my friend and Professor Verghese. Is because of him that he thought that I could do that. Otherwise, I was happily sitting in Cochin, retired from our earlier activities. Thank you so much, and I can take questions if there are. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Menon, sir. As you were rightly pointing out, it is a difficult topic as far as in this point of time, especially from Kerala. Nation is looking at somebody who is speaking about digital learning. So this is a very careful, handle with care kind of topic to deal with. So you have done it very excellently, as Professor N.V. Verghese sir was pointing out days before to me. You are the right person as of now to talk about this kind of a topic. I think you have talked about this digital learning from three sides: pre-pandemic, the pandemic era, then the post-pandemic. And you concluded by saying that we have to take the post-pandemic era as a new normal, and we should prepare for that, prepare to deal that kind of a situation. So whether we have to go back, that kind of a question is not there, but we have to deal the new normal future. So we have to start from somewhere, from this pandemic era kind of digital learning kind of thing. We have to start from here, and we have to take forward. I'm not entering into all the details because so many questions will be there. So many people are waiting to ask you some questions. So we have to. We can take, I think, 10 to 15 minutes from here for that. Can we take the questions together, sir, or
maybe after one or two, 3 questions, then I can come. I mean, if
okay.
so many questions are there, I may miss the questions. That's the only thing.
Yeah, okay. So we will take the first 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Jamila, are you? Yeah, please.
Thank you very much for that very interesting talk that you gave. It was a wide, I would say, talk that covered so many things, from the very past to the new normal way of teaching teachers. So we say that it is possible by bringing in a new curriculum, by making laptops and phones available to students. I think the main hindrance that perhaps we will have to account and overcome is the way in which teachers think. So do you think that it's possible for us to find a way by which we could create the enthusiasm and the imagination of the teacher to creatively use technology and to make students critically think in the process?
Dr. Lal, do you think I can continue?
Yeah, Professor Achyut Shankar, sir. Achyut Shankar is here. Please, sir.
Okay. Dr. Mohan Menon, thank you for the very illuminating talk. During the talk, you mentioned about post-pandemic scenario, which was very interesting to me. I am not really here to ask a question, but I just would like you to respond to some comment I would like to make in this context. I believe if there was no pandemic and the government decided that we must try out online education with something like Google Meet, then in Kerala, I am sure that the government would have fell down, because it is such a controversial thing to even try out such an experiment. But the pandemic times have made it inevitable, and thereby our whole society, teachers and students, decision makers, all of them have gained very valuable experience, first-hand experience about digital education. So even though pandemic is not good, but this experience is good. Whether we decide to carry this forward or not, but I think that it will be a very informed, well-informed decision. And you mentioned very rightly that we might have there is no going back to the old classroom, but there might be a hybrid form of education after post-COVID. Now, what I would like to comment is, right now, we have just got a taste of digital education, and technology is being used at the most rudimentary level, as just as a medium to connect students and teachers, and as a platform. But because these sensitivities have changed about technology, I can also foresee that we may have newer technologies or higher level of technologies adopted. For example, I think everybody knows that machine learning is on an upsurge, and unbelievable things have been achieved, like driverless cars. And I would like to point out just one, the very famous software which is yet to be released, which is called GPT-3. If you ask it anything, it will answer in a very scholarly manner, to the extent that one newspaper asked it to write a edit page article, the New York Times, and it wrote an article, and it was carried in the edit page. And nobody would suspect it to be written by a machine. So I foresee that we might use higher technologies into education. And I, as a computer science professor, I'm very happy and proud about it. But as a simple, humble human being, I am afraid that this is going to dehumanize education further, in addition to what is already there. Every student might have an app in front of, in their mobile, and the teacher, the real teacher, will be animated in such a way that the student asks a question, specific question by the student is answered by the teacher, but actually the teacher is not there, GPT is working, and the teacher's image is animated and it answers. Would something like that happen? I will not be, as an old man, I will not be very happy about it. It will be a very great dehumanizing effect on education. I would just like you to comment on this. Thank you very much again for the very illuminating talk.
Yes. One more question at this point of time. Language is not a barrier because technology is the language. That is what we are now talking about. So we can ask in Malayalam also, whether any other language Dr. Menon can follow. So many people are there, pan-India people are here. So you can ask in your language.
Yeah, I can follow Hindi, Tamil.
Okay, please.
Maybe I should respond to these two questions. Please. Let me first take Professor Jamila's question about teachers. You see, I am basically a teacher and a teacher educator, and if teachers, of course, are, as all of us know, that they are the major change agent. I mean, they are the people who really have to finally do the things. But I do believe that most teachers, if they find that what the design that we are coming out with for a new normal classroom is not creating more work for them, okay, and not affecting their day-to-day life and more responsibilities and all. Generally, if they have a positive mind, I'm not talking about teachers who may, I know people, not only teachers, anything that one would say, one may go against it. I'm not talking about such people, but generally they would be wanting to implement. At least they would listen and say that this is the way one may have to go. What is important for a teacher and for any academic, that should not be thinking that I am being imposed something. It is I am the person as a teacher who has gone through and dealt with classes during the pandemic. You listen to me, what I have to say. So my suggestion for Dr. Lal, who may now take it up and then in a proactive manner and plan the new normal, is that we should engage with the teachers and the schools and all more in the beginning to understand. You may not even call it research. I mean, because research takes us into a different level. But here, I want their feedback, very engaged feedback, because I believe that talking to some of the teachers, they have gone through an experience which was never in their life, as we also went through, which never in our life, isn't it? The first time that as in our life was disturbed to this extent, I cannot remember in my whole life that such a thing happened earlier. So I think we should expect, we should be positive. Changing them is not easy, I also know. But if that is going to make, if they start understanding that, yes, this can make a difference, children are happy about that. And I am less worried about children, by the way. You see, they will be more happy with the way, if that is more child engaged and interactive and digital, all put together in a blended manner or hybrid, as Professor Shankar said. I think yeah, that will be that's my. It's not a small. It's not an easy thing for me to say one solution for that, but we have to work from them onwards. I think rather than telling that this is what we are going to do for the next. I think that's my response. And to Dr. Ashishankar's, I fully agree with you that, and you are a computer scientist, I am a teacher educator. I am not a computer person at all. And you yourself say that you will be quite sad if everything go into, if it becomes a machine learning, or rather without teacher, you can have a computer as a teacher. I'm sure you will understand how more sad I would be as a teacher educator. But I still believe whatever computers can do or digital provision can be, should happen like that. And it is happening in our own life on everyday activities, isn't it? I don't go to the bank at all these days. None of us go. ATM is there, that is there. I don't see the bank people. You go to the bank, sometimes there is nobody in the bank. You see, or very few people in the bank. So similarly, several things in our life have changed and everything happens online. I think that should happen. We should not run away from that. But still, I feel teacher has a special role to play. And the teacher's presence as a human being in the classroom, interacting with 30, 40 children, and they know very well that they can ask anything to do. It is not just the information they want from the teacher, which probably they will get from the computer, but the teacher as a human being, the warmth of the human being, and the concern, the emotions that the human being has. I am probably a computer may learn that also in future, but today probably that's not. So teachers will have to come. We cannot think of a teacherless learning situation, especially in the school education. I wouldn't fully say that for higher education, because higher education, when adults can learn even without a human touch. So that's my observation. But I agree with you that we should, with the change role of the teacher is what we have to really think of.
I may, sir, I may be permitted to just, in a lighter vein, add that there is some humanization that is happening because of these technological classrooms. അധ്യാപകര് ക്ലാസ് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ ഞാൻ കേട്ടൊരു തമാശ, ഒരു അധ്യാപകൻ വളരെ ഗൗരവത്തിൽ, അദ്ദേഹം കുട്ടികളുമായിട്ടൊന്നും അങ്ങനെ ഇന്ററാക്ട് ചെയ്യില്ല, വളരെ ഗൗരവമുള്ള ആളാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം ക്ലാസ് എടുത്തുകൊണ്ടൊന്നും പെട്ടെന്ന് ഭാര്യ സ്ക്രീനിൽ പ്രത്യക്ഷപ്പെടുന്നു. ആ ക്ലാസ്സൊക്കെ മതി, ഉള്ളി അരിഞ്ഞ് വെച്ച് തിരിച്ചു പോയി ക്ലാസ് എടുത്താൽ മതി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. I just thought I had that word of fun. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Yes,
I have a question.
Abdul Nasser? No. Who is that?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay,
Okay, Abdul Nasser, please. Okay.
Sir, just first of all, I want to appreciate the Menon sir to giving a good lecture here, good session. This I have a question. I have some doubts because this Corona time is it's a golden time for the entire education system, especially for the teachers. As Jamila Madam said, the teachers are not ready to capture and ready to all sort of change. But the system, still now the system is doing or patching the dots and holes of that old pots. Even we know that during the pandemic situation, even the situation is somewhat okay. The government and the system is not allow the teachers to come to the schools. At least they will keep the COVID protocol also. If the system is allowing the teachers, there may be a technological explosion will be there in the entire education system. We know that the students are very techno savvy, but teachers are not much. But they are not allowing to utilize the disruptive technology as we used in all other areas like banking, health, and all. I could say that the teachers should give enough rooms and provide enough time to get them the technologically savvy and technologize them. The system have to work on that. So actually, I'm asking that the system is actually making issues for the teachers. Even they are ready to change and they are ready to get the technological skills.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Who is next?
Can I add something to what has just been said? Really, one of the things I think that CMAT could take up is that we know that teachers of different grades, from say 1 to 5, 5 to 10, the way they use technology in the classroom is bound to be different and has to be different. So this kind, at the college level, as you rightly said, Dr. Mohan, that technology at the higher grades sometimes becomes teacher independent, but it is very teacher dependent when you come to the say +2 level or the lower grades, and more so in the lower grades. So I think CMAT could perhaps take up this as a challenge to see the training of teachers in such a way that you demarcate them as to the kind of competencies that they will need and the classroom practices that they can use. This is just a suggestion for CMAT.
Thank you, madam. Yes. Yeah, GUPS 1D Periyar. Yes, please.
சார் வணக்கம். நல்ல ஒரு நிகழ்ச்சி, அருமையான ஒரு கிளாஸ் மோகன் சார் தந்தாங்க. ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம், நிறைய காரியங்கள் தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட முடிஞ்சது. என்னோட ஒரு கொஸ்டின், once we told the children that don't use mobile phones, don't take mobile phones அப்படின்னு எல்லாம் சொல்லிட்டு இருந்தோம். But now we are giving mobile phones to our children, even from the first standard onwards. The children are having their own mobile phones. அப்படியெல்லாம் இருக்குது. அப்ப இனி இப்ப சார் சொன்னார், ஒரு நியூ நார்மல் சிச்சுவேஷன் நமக்கு இனி நம்ம ஃபேஸ் பண்ண வேண்டியது இருக்கு அப்படின்னு சொன்னாரு. அப்படிங்கும்போது நீ ஒருவேளை நம்ம ஸ்கூல் ரீஓபன் ஆன பிறகு ஒரு குழந்தை ஒரு மொபைல் போனோட வந்தா, இல்ல நம்ம அதை எப்படி நம்ம ஃபேஸ் பண்ணுவோம், இந்த கிளாஸ் ரூம்ஸ் எப்படி இருக்கும் அப்படிங்கிறது தான் ஒரு சார். ST Raj, I'm the headmaster of this school.
Okay.
Kidikidi State.
Yeah, I think I should respond to two of the questions, and of course, Dr. Jamila substantiated or rather supported what was being said. One regarding the system. I mean, I do believe that I think we seriously think of how we have to make our what can I say? The system means the people who are managing the system at the state level or the district level or even at the school level, more flexible to this. The mindset has to be, some change would have happened already, I believe, that with such a some change would have happened. But in the system is doing in the class or whatever, and accept that. one of the jokes, as all of us know today, that many states, the results of this 10th and second, how things are taught, how things are taught in a management institution is case studies, we call it. Why can't we have case studies, situations created, and teachers are exposed to that situation in different ways, how a blended classroom happens? Exposed to them. Even if all the teachers don't replicate, or rather they should not replicate, accept all the things, some change might happen. That's all I can. But there's a need for orienting them or developing them on a regular basis. The thing about new normal situation and what did you tell I think that's where the system comes in. I hope, Mr. Raj, that in your
Yes, sir.
department, and they will come out with that a notification telling we are allowing smartphones in the classroom. But that doesn't mean they should use. We may have to, in the long run, we may have to have such devices which can be used in a limited manner. We don't need a smartphone which can do everything that we want to do, all applications. Maybe that's something that technology providers will have to think of, developing such smartphones. It need not be very smart. What I mean to say is, but it can take care of access certain things. But I think we may not be able to stop it completely. If that is the case, I don't know. That probably is creating more problems, I think. But as I said earlier, it is not an easy situation. But completely banning smartphones in the school may not be a good alternative or good.
കാരണം ടെക്നോളജി എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മനുഷ്യന്റെ മുന്നോട്ടുള്ള പോക്കിൽ പുതിയ പുതിയ ഉപാധികളും പുതിയ കാര്യങ്ങളും കണ്ടെത്തിയിട്ടാണ് നമ്മൾ മുന്നോട്ട് പോയത്. അപ്പം ഇതിൽ നമ്മൾ പരിഭ്രമിക്കേണ്ട കാര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല. പക്ഷേ എങ്ങനെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇതിനെ ഒരു ജുഡീഷ്യസ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു പൊസിഷനിങ് എങ്ങനെയാണ് സാധ്യമാവുക? അതിന് നമ്മൾ എന്തെല്ലാം കാര്യം ശ്രദ്ധിക്കണം. അത് കുറേയും കൂടി ഡിസ്കഷൻ്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ പറ്റും. ആ ജുഡീഷ്യൽ യൂസ് ഓഫ് ടെക്നോളജി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു സംഗതിയെയും ലേണിംഗ് ടു ലേൺ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ബേസിക് പ്രിമൈസസിനെയും ശക്തിപ്പെടുത്താൻ നമ്മൾ എന്തെല്ലാം ശ്രദ്ധിക്കേണ്ടത് എന്നുള്ളത് ആണ് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നത്. നമ്മൾ കുറേയും കൂടി ഡിബേറ്റ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരുമെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. വ്യത്യസ്തങ്ങളായ പൊസിഷൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. അതിനെ നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ ഒരു ചില കാര്യങ്ങളിലെങ്കിലും കൺസെൻസസിലേക്ക് എങ്ങനെയാണ് കൊണ്ടുവരേണ്ടത്, അതിൻ്റെ രീതിശാസ്ത്രം എന്തായിരിക്കണം എന്നുള്ളത് ഒന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു തുടങ്ങിയാൽ കുഴപ്പമില്ലാന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു.
യെസ്, ഡോക്ടർ മോഹൻ മേനോൻ ഇതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട ഒന്ന് രണ്ട് കമന്റ്സ് ഇവിടെ അത് കാരണം സഫർ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. അവരുടെ സ്പേസ് ആണ് ഈ ഒരു കോർപ്പറേറ്റ് വേൾഡ് അത് അടിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് പോകുന്നു. ടീച്ചേഴ്സ് ആർ നീഡഡ് എന്നുള്ള ഒരു രീതിയിലേക്ക് പോകും എന്നുള്ള കമന്റ്സ് ഒക്കെ
എല്ലാം കൂടെ ചേർത്തിട്ട് പറയാം. മൈ റെസ്പോൺസ്, ഞാൻ ഐ അഗ്രി വിത്ത് വാട്ട് ഡോക്ടർ സിആർ സെഡ്. പിന്നെ സിആറിനെ കുറെ കാലം കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടാണ് കാണുന്നത്. വളരെ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്, വർഷങ്ങളായി. അപ്പം അതും വലിയൊരു കാര്യമാണ്, നല്ല കാര്യമാണ്. തീർച്ചയായിട്ടും ഞാൻ അതിനോട് യോജിക്കുന്നു. കാരണം ഉപയോഗിച്ചു നമ്മളൊരു ലേണിംഗ് എൻവയറമെന്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതല്ല, ആ ഒരു എൻവയറമെന്റ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതിന്റെ ഒരു റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റി ഉണ്ട്. അതിന് ടെക്നോളജി ആവശ്യമുണ്ട്, ഡിജിറ്റൽ ആക്സസ് വേണം, കുട്ടികൾക്ക് തന്നെ എൻഗേജ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ, കുട്ടികളുടെ ആവശ്യങ്ങൾ. അപ്പൊ ലേണർ സെന്റേർഡ് തന്നെയാണ് ലേണിംഗ്. ആക്ച്വലി അത് കാണിക്കണം എന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ വി വിൽ ഹാവ് ടു ഹാവ് സിറ്റുവേഷൻസ്. അതാണ് ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് കുറച്ച് മുമ്പ്. We have to create some of these situations to actually show to the teacher. അപ്പൊ അങ്ങനെ വരുമ്പോൾ ഞാൻ കൊടുക്കണം എന്നുള്ള ഉദ്ദേശമുള്ള, പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് സ്കൂൾ ലെവലില് അവർക്ക് എന്തും പഠിക്കാം, എന്തും ചെയ്യാം, എന്തിനും ഇതാണ് എന്നല്ല നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നത്. there has to be a control എന്ന് ഞാൻ പറയില്ല. there has to be a organization for that. A learning environment has to be organized by the teacher. So teacher or the school or whatever, ആ ഒരു റോള് ടീച്ചർക്ക് ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ അത് കാരണം കംപ്ലീറ്റ് ടീച്ചർ ഇല്ലാത്ത ഒരു സിറ്റുവേഷൻ, ലേണിംഗ് എസ്പെഷ്യലി ഇൻ സ്കൂൾ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ, learning without a teacher at all, I am not able to visualize at the moment. I don't know what changes would happen in the coming days, not days, coming years or in future, where or even teacher can be replaced. That I cannot respond to that. But at the moment, I feel teacher's role is changing. Teacher's role will be, with the help of the school, create that learning environment in the class, have enough flexibility, enough resources, and resources and flexibility വേണം ലേണറുടെ ആവശ്യം അനുസരിച്ച് ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു ഗൈഡൻസ് കൊടുക്കണമല്ലോ, ഒരു ഫെസിലിറ്റേറ്റ് ചെയ്യണമല്ലോ ലേണറെ. ആ ഒരു റോളും കൂടെ ടീച്ചർ will have to have. So that's the way I'm looking at. I think otherwise technology will take over and we will be very, that extreme sort of reactions I don't want to really go into, because many a time we take those reactions because of certain other factors or our mindset issues also. If one is against corporate, that doesn't mean that we are against a gadget being used. I mean, that okay, they may try to do that, they will sell more gadgets, that is possible. That is wrong also. They will try to make it more gadget based, that is wrong also. Adinanallo നമ്മളൊരു ഗവൺമെന്റ്, ഐ മീൻ to manage a very healthy sort of a blending between the two is what we have to really think of now, and the governments and all these are there for that purpose only, and academics also has to engage themselves in designing those things in a more effective manner. That's all I can say at the moment. But I agree that it has to be learner centered, and it has to be, but the teacher's presence is must as a facilitator, an organizer of the learning environment, and teachers need will always be there. I don't believe that there will be something without a teacher.
Yes, ഒന്ന് രണ്ട് ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻസ് കൂടെ നമുക്ക് എടുക്കാൻ തോന്നുന്നു, വളരെ സമയത്തിന്റെ പ്രശ്നമുണ്ട് ഇപ്പൊ.
Yes sir, am I audible?
Yes, yeah, please.
Okay, a lot thing, but for a long time the students are inside the room and listening to the school children. It is really hectic for them for after some days in front of these devices, and also they lacks personal classes, and also actually this physical class actually gives a neutral environment for these social interactions for those students, especially for those school students, and which helps in developing skills like setting boundaries, how to set boundaries with others, and how to learn to cooperate with others, and also the important part is empathy, how to develop those skills. So so apart from these academic activities, we know technology is there. I'm also a computer science teacher, and apart from these newer technologies, students lack these because they are striving to communicate with their peers, because if we are considering the common people, they lacks they need to cope up with those costs with the internet to talk with others, like so that is I think something lacks with these situations. So thank you sir for this opportunity.
So you are agreeing to what I said. I think it has to be
Yes.
more a blended. We cannot continue with the present thing, and then how we will blend it and how that environment would be, I think we'll have to work it out, I think,
Yes, sir.
more
Yes, sir.
carefully. Yeah.
So I think if there are there are questions, but there are no much questions they have to ask in the before 2 p.m. That kind of a feeling is not there. Shall we stop here, or Madam GLPS Chan Tukulli, do you want to respond? Because no.
Okay, I think we should conclude probably from my side. I think that's it. But individually, one hand I can see. There is a hand. Is it?
സാർ നമസ്കാരം.
Ah.
ടീച്ചേഴ്സ്
Hello.
എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അമ്മയാണ്. അമ്മയും ടീച്ചറും ഒന്നാണ്. അപ്പൊ കുട്ടികൾക്ക് നേരിട്ട് ടീച്ചറുമായിട്ട് കിട്ടുന്ന ആ അനുഭവം എത്ര ഓൺലൈൻ ക്ലാസ്സുകൾ എടുത്താലും ഒന്നും കിട്ടില്ലെന്ന് 35 വർഷത്തെ അനുഭവത്തിൽ നിന്ന് എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലായിട്ടുണ്ട്. കുട്ടികള് അത് നമ്മൾ അവരുടെ സാഹചര്യം കൂടെ മനസ്സിലാക്കണം. ഒരു വളരെ വിഷമത്തിലാണ്. അവർക്ക് ശരിക്കും സാമ്പത്തിക ഭദ്രത ഇല്ലാത്ത രക്ഷിതാക്കളാണ് കഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നത്. അല്ലാത്തവർക്കൊക്കെ പകല് വീട്ടിലിരുന്ന് കുട്ടികളെ ശ്രദ്ധിക്കാൻ സമയമുണ്ട്. ഇത് പകല് ജോലിയെല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞ് വരുന്ന രക്ഷിതാക്കൾ കുട്ടികളുടെ അടുത്തിരിക്കാനോ വീട്ടുകാര്യങ്ങൾ നോക്കാനോ അധികം സമയം കിട്ടില്ല. പിന്നെ രോഗങ്ങൾ ഒരു വശം. എന്നിരുന്നാലും ഈ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാരുടെ അടുത്ത് 2 വാക്ക് സംസാരിക്കാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു തന്നെ വലിയ സന്തോഷമുണ്ട്. താങ്ക്സ് സാർ.
Thank you, teacher. Okay. Archana Gaur, madam, do you want to respond?
Sir, thank you very much for allowing me to speak something. First of all, I would like to give a big thank you to Dr. Mohan Menon. मैं मध्य प्रदेश से आपके साथ में बात कर रही हूँ और आपने कहा कि
जरूर
आप
बोलिए,
समझते हैं तो मैं आपके साथ
बोलिए,
हिंदी में
जवाब
बातचीत
तो
करना
शायद
चाहूंगी।
हिंदी में नहीं दे सकेंगे उतना आसान से।
कोई बात नहीं सर, मेरा रिफ्लेक्शन है, बस रिफ्लेक्शन है ये
बोलिए आराम
कि
से।
आज आपने डिजिटल लर्निंग के बारे में बहुत ही डिटेल में और तीनों एरा के बारे में बहुत डिटेल में डिस्कस किया है, जिसके बारे में क्योंकि हम डाइट में काम करते हैं, टीचर एजुकेटर हैं, और टीचर के साथ में जो पहला प्रश्न आया था कि उनके माइंडसेट को कैसे, आपने काफी अच्छे टिप्स दिए हैं जिनको कि यूज करते हुए हम अपने टीचर्स के साथ में काम कर सकते हैं। ये ठीक है कि उस दौर स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो ज्यादा टेक्नो सेवी हैं रादर देन द टीचर्स। तो हम लोग इस फेज से खुद गुजरे हैं। पिछले 1.5-2 साल में ही हमने अपनी जितनी भी एबिलिटीज हैं, डिजिटल एबिलिटीज और कौशल, वो इसी तरह से अर्जित किए हैं सीखते सीखते। जब किसी तरह के नेशनल और इंटरनेशनल प्लेटफॉर्म पर आप लोगों के साथ में हमने सीखने की कोशिश की, तभी हम ये गूगल और जूम और इसके थ्रू एक्सेस करके सीख पाए हैं। स्टेट लेवल पर भी बहुत सी एक्टिविटीज हो रही है मध्य प्रदेश में, लेकिन ये बहुत सुनहरे अवसर होते हैं जब हम राष्ट्र के किसी बहुत प्रख्यात व्यक्ति को सुनने का अवसर पाते हैं और उनके विचारों से अपने आप को फिर से इतना हल्का महसूस करते हैं कि बड़े पैंडेमिक के दौरान जब हम गुजरे हैं तो आने वाले समय को हम कैसे अपनी भूमिकाओं के द्वारा ठीक ढंग से निर्वहन कर पाएंगे। तो मेरा बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको कि आपने जो टिप्स दिए हैं वो बहुत ही कारगर होंगे हमारे लिए। मैं मध्य प्रदेश से, हिंदी स्टेट से इस बात को पूरे ध्यान से सुन रही थी, आपकी पूरे लेक्चर को मैंने बहुत ध्यान से सुना है और डेफिनेटली ये मेरे साथियों के साथ में मैं शेयर करूंगी जो लोग दे वर नॉट एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड बिकॉज इट होल प्रेजेंटेशन वाज इन इंग्लिश। सो हम उनके साथ भी शेयर करेंगे और जो बातें आपने कही थी वो हमने नोट की हैं और उनका लाभ उठाते हुए हम डेफिनेटली जो एनईपी में आपने कहा था कि ये बहुत क्लियर नहीं है, लेकिन आपने बहुत सारी बातें इसमें हमको क्लियर कर दी हैं और जो बातें आपने कही उसमें इस बात से भी मैं बहुत सहमत हूँ कि टीचर्स का जो रोल है वो हर समय चेंज होता है, किसी भी एरा में वो चेंज होता रहता है, पर जो टीचर्स उस समय के दौरान तत्कालीन परिस्थितियों में, परिवेशों में अपने आप को साधारण तरीके से परिवर्तित कर लेते हैं, वो हमेशा लोगों के लिए मददगार साबित होते हैं। लेकिन यदि हम उसी माइंडसेट के साथ बैठे रहें कि ओह ये अब एक और नई चीज पर इम्पोज की जा रही है, अब एक और नई चीज हम पर ला दी जा रही है, तो फिर हम कुछ एटीट्यूड और एप्टीट्यूड के साथ हम चलें कि ये हमारा रोल है, इस रोल में हमको आगे आने वाली जनरेशन को जो आगे 20-30 साल बाद कैसी होगी, या इस सिस्टम के द्वारा जहां अभी हम हैं और जब तक हम हैं, कैसे हम इन बच्चों को मोटिवेट कर सकते हैं, कैसे इन बच्चों को स्कूल में ला सकते हैं, कैसे इनके साथ में जो फिजिकल, सोशल और इमोशनल लॉस हुए हैं और जो डिजिटल डिवाइस के कारण हुए या के कारण हुए, किसी भी कारणों से हुए हों, लेकिन हम अभी भी इतने सशक्त हैं, इतने एम्पावर्ड हैं कि हम इन चीजों को ओवरकम कर सकते हैं। मशीन को तो प्रोग्रामिंग की जरूरत पड़ेगी, लेकिन हम यदि सेंसिटिव हैं, अपने इनिशिएशन ले सकते हैं, इंट्यूटिव हैं, तो हम हर प्रॉब्लम का सॉल्यूशन ढूंढ सकते हैं। ये बेसिक डिफरेंस है मशीन और मैन में। और हम यदि एम्पावर्ड टीचर हैं, टीचर एजुकेटर हैं, तो हम इन सिचुएशन को हैंडल कर सकते हैं विद योर गिवन दिस एनलाइटमेंट टिप्स, एंड I can ensure you that your presentation was enthralling and mesmerizing me very much, and thank you very much once again.
आपसे आपका व्यू से मैं सहमत हूँ। धन्यवाद।
Okay. I think we can wind up here, sir, because so many other questions also are there below the YouTube live streaming. Also, there are so many comments. So I will send it to you, and you can polish your presentation, because we are going to publish this. We will send that to Madhya Pradesh and all other CMATs also after that. So you can that will be benefited if the questions will come to you, I think. Okay. So before going to the formal vote of thanks by our Chief Coordinator, Sri Suresh Babu, I have to thank once again to Professor Menon for making this kind of a presentation. For the last 1 month, we were talking, and I never thought that you will make this kind of a spark. You will sow this kind of sparks in all the people who are thinking about the kind of education going on in this country during this pandemic season, and also after this pandemic, what we have to do, how you will deal with those kind of questions. You very lightly and strategically you dealt with that. I know that this is a dangerous kind of thing, but you said that I am not going to respond to what happened to no teacher kind of a situation, but you said that teacher's role is changing. That is it. So there are so many things to think about at this moment for the teacher, educators, teachers, the policymakers, institutes like CMAT, SCRT, and like that. You throw some light to those kind of thinking. That is enough for the day, I think. This is what we need at the moment, I think. So very thanks to Professor Mohan B. Menon for coming online to our audience and gave a wonderful, excellent lecture in this day. So on behalf of CMAT, myself, for the government, I'm thanking to you. That's all for the time being. And for formal vote of thanks, I invite Sri Suresh Babu, please.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Sir.
Yes,
okay.
I can hear.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Respected dignitaries, guests, friends, and colleagues. ഇന്ന് എല്ലാവരും ഒന്ന് മലയാളികളും
ഓഡിയോ പ്രശ്നം ഉണ്ടെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. മോഹൻ മേനൻ സാർ കേൾക്കാമോ?
ഇല്ല ബ്രേക്ക് ഉണ്ട്.
ഓക്കെ.
ഓഡിയോ
സാറിന്റെ വീഡിയോ ഓഫ് ചെയ്താൽ പക്ഷേ ക്ലിയർ ആയിട്ട് കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റും. വീഡിയോ ഓഫ് ചെയ്താൽ.
വീഡിയോ ഓഫ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു വന്നത് ചിങ്ങം 1-ാം തീയതി, അതായത് മലയാളിയുടെ പുതുവർഷത്തിൽ തന്നെ സീമാറ്റ്കയുടെ ഈ വർഷത്തെ അക്കാദമിക് പരിപാടികളുടെ ഉദ്ഘാടനം നടത്തിയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. കൂടാതെ സ്കൂൾ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് അക്കാദമി കേരള ലെക്ചർ സീരീസ് 2ാമത്തെ ലെക്ചർ ഡോക്ടർ നിർവഹിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞിരിക്കും. എല്ലാ തരത്തിലും സന്തോഷകരമായ നിമിഷമാണ്. ഏതായാലും ഞാൻ കൂടുതൽ സമയം എടുക്കുന്നില്ല. ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ ഈ ചടങ്ങിൽ അധ്യക്ഷത വഹിച്ചത് പൊതുവിദ്യാഭ്യാസ പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ സെക്രട്ടറി മുഹമ്മദ് ഹനീഷ് സാറാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് സീമാറ്റിൻ്റെ ഉള്ള മന്ത്രി വി അവர்களാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിനുള്ള കൃതജ്ഞതയെ പ്രത്യേകമായി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുകയാണ്. അതുപോലെ പ്രത്യേക കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു തരികയും ചെയ്തു നീപ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറായ ഡോക്ടർ NV വർഗീസ് സാറാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിനുള്ള കൃതജ്ഞത രേഖപ്പെടുത്തിക്കൊള്ളുന്നു. കൂടാതെ ഇന്ന് നമ്മുടെ കൂടെ DG ജീവൻ ബാബു ES അദ്ദേഹം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അദ്ദേഹവും വളരെ ഒരു ബ്രീഫായിട്ടുള്ള എന്നാൽ ഇൻസ്പയറിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു സ്പീച്ച് അദ്ദേഹവും നടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിനുള്ള നന്ദി ഞങ്ങൾ രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുകയാണ്. കൂടാതെ സീമാറ്റ് കേരളയുടെ ഡയറക്ടർ അദ്ദേഹമായിരുന്നു സ്വാഗത പ്രസംഗം നടത്തിയിരുന്നത്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിനോട് പ്രത്യേകമായി നന്ദി പറയുന്നത് അത്ര പ്രസക്തമാണോ എന്നറിയില്ല. എങ്കിൽ പോലും ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഈ ഒരു പ്രത്യേക പ്രോഗ്രാം, ഈ ഇവന്റ് വളരെ മനോഹരമായി ഓർഗനൈസ് ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് നേതൃത്വം നൽകിയ ഡോക്ടർ MA ലാൽ അദ്ദേഹത്തിനുള്ള ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൃതജ്ഞത രേഖപ്പെടുത്താൻ ഈ അവസരം ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നു. പ്രത്യേക കൃതജ്ഞത പറയേണ്ടത് ഡോക്ടർ മോഹൻദാസ് B മേനോനോടാണ്. അദ്ദേഹം അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര പ്രശസ്തനായിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വിദ്യാഭ്യാസ വിചക്ഷണനാണെന്ന് നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും അറിയാം. മാത്രവുമല്ല, അദ്ദേഹം ഈ ഓപ്പൺ ലേണിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ലേണിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആ ഒരു മേഖലയിൽ വളരെ ശ്രദ്ധേയമായിട്ടുള്ള കോൺട്രിബ്യൂഷൻസ് നടത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള ഓപ്പൺ ലേണിങ്ങിൻ്റെ ഒരു അന്താരാഷ്ട്ര വിദഗ്ധനായിട്ടുള്ള അദ്ദേഹത്തിൻ്റെ ലെക്ചർ നമ്മളെല്ലാവരും ആസ്വദിച്ചു. വളരെ ഇൻസ്പയറിംഗ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു ലെക്ചർ പ്രോഗ്രാം ആയിരുന്നു അത് എന്ന് നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവരും സമ്മതിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണ്. അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രത്യേകമായ നന്ദി മോഹൻദാസ് സാറിനോട് ഞങ്ങൾ പ്രത്യേകമായി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു. സാർ, ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ പങ്കെടുത്തതിനുള്ള ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൃതജ്ഞത, ഞങ്ങളുടെ നന്ദി ഞങ്ങൾ പ്രത്യേകമായി സാറിനെ അറിയിക്കുകയാണ്. കൂടാതെ ഇന്നത്തെ ഒരു പ്രോഗ്രാമിൻ്റെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ പ്രത്യേകത ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ പാൻ ഇന്ത്യ NIPA heads of other SIEMAT. They were present here, and we little program gives us for operation future also. നമ്മുടെ സ്ഥാനത്ത് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകളുടെ മേധാവികളുണ്ട്, പാർട്ണറിംഗ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂഷൻ്റെ മേധാവികൾ, SERT, SIET, ലിറ്ററസി എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ കൗൺസിൽ, പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേഷൻ കൂടാതെ ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള റെപ്രസെൻറ്റേഷൻ, നമ്മുടെ ടീച്ചർ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷൻ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങൾ B.Ed മെഡലുള്ള കോളേജുണ്ട്. അതുപോലെ DLED കോഴ്സ് നടത്തുന്ന മേഖലയിലുള്ള ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഡയറ്റിയുടെ വലിയ പ്രാതിനിധ്യം, അത് കേരളത്തിൽ നിന്നുള്ളവരും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, മറ്റു പുറത്തു നിന്നുള്ള ഡയറ്റുകളിൽ നിന്നുള്ള പ്രാതിനിധ്യം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അവരോടൊക്കെയുള്ള ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഉള്ള അതീവ കൃതജ്ഞത, നന്ദിയും രേഖപ്പെടുത്താനായിട്ട് ഈ അവസരം ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നു. മറ്റ് എടുത്തു പറയേണ്ട ഒരു വിഭാഗം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് നമ്മുടെ മീഡിയ പ്രവർത്തകരാണ്, മാധ്യമ പ്രവർത്തകർ. ആ സുഹൃത്തുക്കളും നിരവധി പേര് ഈ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുകയും ഇതുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട വാർത്തകളൊക്കെ തന്നെ വളരെ പ്രാധാന്യത്തോടുകൂടി ഇന്നത്തെ പത്രങ്ങളിൽ കൊടുക്കുകയും ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അവരോടൊക്കെയുള്ള ഞങ്ങളുടെ പ്രത്യേകമായ കൃതജ്ഞത രേഖപ്പെടുത്തിക്കൊള്ളട്ടെ. കൂടാതെ ഇന്ന് നമുക്ക് വളരെ പ്രോത്സാഹനജനകമായ ഒരു കാര്യം, നമ്മൾ വളരെ അടുത്ത ആൾക്കാർ അവർ ഇന്നത്തെ മീറ്റിംഗിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുകയായിട്ടുണ്ട്. പ്രധാനമായിട്ടും ഡോക്ടർ CR തുടങ്ങിയവരൊക്കെ ഇന്നത്തെ ഒരു മീറ്റിംഗിൽ മുഴുവൻ ഇന്ററാക്ഷൻ സെഷനിൽ വളരെ ആക്റ്റീവായി പങ്കെടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. അവരോടുള്ള ഞങ്ങളുടെ കൃതജ്ഞത രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നതിനൊപ്പം നിങ്ങളുടെ അവസരം ഫ്രണ്ട്സ് അവര് എൻ്റെ കുറെ പറ്റി ആയിരിക്കാം. ഈ ഒരു എവർക്കും ഒരിക്കൽ കൂടി നന്ദി പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ നിർത്തുന്നു. സ്പെഷ്യൽ താങ്ക്സ് ടു ദി പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേറ്റ് for other
Anyway, sorry for what has happened at the end of this program. There is some network issue there. Anyway, this is also one of the major challenge of this digital learning, I think, which Dr. Mohan Menon was pointing out earlier. There are network issues, digital divide, that kind of things we have to address. So anyway, I, on behalf of Suresh Babu and SIEMAT Kerala, all the people who are here for hearing Professor Menon and who has participated in the inaugural session earlier, especially to those people who came from outside Kerala, SIEMATs, then school leadership academies, NUPA, NCRT and others, and also those who have asked questions, interacted in between, Professor Jamila, Professor Rajesh Shankar S. Nair, Dr. C. Ramakrishnan, then Rahana Begum, then teacher from Chanothu Kulli, then Vandipiriyar Raj sir, Abdul Nasser sir, and Archana Gaur madam, especially from Madhya Pradesh. Thank you very much. Suresh Babu sir, you are here, I know. AEOs, DEOs, DDs, HMs, principals of various schools. They have then resource persons of SIEMAT Kerala, they have participated.